My name is Ray. I'm from upstate New York. So I go
Mm-hmm.
to a large public high school called Shaker High School. And yeah, so currently a senior, and I'm going to be in the class of 2030 for Harvard. And I'll be studying, well, right now I'm thinking like chemical and physical biology, maybe a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of film also. But right now, still undecided, really. We'll see,
That's
in the
amazing,
future.
man.
Yeah.
Congrats on getting into Harvard. That's the dream.
Thank you. Yeah.
What was your reaction when you got that acceptance letter?
Yeah, so I actually applied um early action to Yale, which
Mm-hmm.
is interesting because, they're rivals. But yeah, after I got into Yale, I was like, wow, maybe I can actually do this. So in the regular cycle, I applied to a couple more. I think I
Mm-hmm.
only applied to 8 colleges in total,
Okay.
and Harvard was one of them. So I had opened like a bunch on, not a bunch, but 3 colleges on Ivy Day, and Harvard was the last one. And so at that point, I had already gotten into Princeton and Columbia, and so I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And then
Yeah.
Harvard came around, so that was just like I was a little numb to it, I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, it was still kind of like this is a crazy thing, and I didn't really know how to react. Like both of my
Mm-hmm.
parents were there while I was opening it, and they were obviously really happy. But yeah, in the moment, I was just like, okay, what is actually going on? And I guess I didn't really think of like me getting in as like a big thing at the time, but
Mm.
after reflecting on it more, obviously it was kind of crazy. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. What made you decide on Harvard? Because like a lot of students in my DMs feel like they need one dream school from day one, but I think your
Yeah.
path was more open. At what point did Harvard go from just like another elite school on the list to the place like you actually wanted to attend?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest, Yale was kind of like that dream school thing, like
Mm-hmm.
that I had wanted since the beginning. But and I was really happy when I got in, because I really liked their philosophy of like, and like they
Mm-hmm.
they really like interdisciplinary people,
Yeah.
and so I was kind of within that bucket. I had interests in science as well as art, and so I kind of tied all of that into my application. Yeah, it was definitely the school in which my application fit the best, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because of those interests. So, once I got in, I was like, oh, cool. But I don't think at the time I knew exactly what I wanted, like out of my college experience. So, come like regular decision when I got into my other schools, I really try to
Mm-hmm.
weigh the pros and cons of things. Like a big thing for me was location, right? Like I come from a
Mm-hmm.
pretty suburban background. I wanted to get a more urban or like city feel. And Yale
Mm-hmm.
is located in New Haven, and that is a city, but I think Boston, Harvard is
Yeah, it's
is in
much
like that
better. Like
Cambridge area. Yeah.
it's pretty
I
dry. Yeah,
really,
in there.
yeah, I really did like that. Also, the prospects of like, getting a job in the future. I was
Mm-hmm.
looking into like internships in the biotech field, for example, and it just seemed like Boston and Harvard in general like had more access to those types of things. Like Yale was very much about like academic exploration, right? Like
Mm.
you take as many classes in different disciplines or whatever, and Harvard is still has those aspects because they're both liberal arts schools, but you just get more of a pre-professional feel. And, I think in the future, I would want my college experience to ultimately lead to, a job. And,
Yeah.
I still think like Harvard has a lot of the qualities that Yale does. They're pretty much like rivals, right? So it's not like, I would be um, sacrificing a whole lot by choosing one over the other. So it really just came
Makes
down to
sense.
vibes at the end. Yeah.
All right. And like so many students I work with feel like they have scattered interests and worry like the admissions officers will see them as unfocused. So how did you make your interdisciplinary interests feel like a strength instead of a liability?
Yeah, so I'll talk about this for Yale more specifically, but
Mm-hmm.
also in general, right? Because I noticed there was an overarching theme with applying to all of these colleges because Yeah, like Yale is known to be the more interdisciplinary school, like for example, as opposed to like Harvard or Princeton. But they all want students who kind of share those qualities. Like it's very hard to distinguish them because they're largely looking for the same students, right?
Mm,
So I guess for me, the interdisciplinary thing only came like I just try to be very authentic. When I was a freshman, I took art classes and I really liked art. I liked it. I had liked it since, I was younger. And science kind of came a little bit after that. It was in
mm-hmm,
about 10th grade where I was exposed to a science research program at my school, and they just let us, get in contact with mentors, perform scientific research, that sort of thing. And naturally, I was kind of exposed to it. So I would say, like, when you're forging a story, like, don't um, necessarily lie about your passions. Like for
okay,
me, I kind of just got what I had, right?
mm-hmm,
And then come college app season, I try to formulate it so that it was a cohesive story. Like for me, those interests were well, were largely negligible when it came to my overarching story. Like I'm a first gen college student,
mm-hmm,
for example, and that was a large part of my story. So
okay,
it didn't necessarily matter that I was going into science or art or a combination of those things, as long as I had that sort of, ability or I guess story that I really needed to provide for my family. And
mm,
academics was one way that I was going to do it. And so it didn't really matter in which field. All I knew is I just wanted to attain higher, levels of education, like college and beyond. And
makes
so
sense.
that's definitely one way you can do it. But of course, like schools like Yale, they still cared about the interdisciplinary part. So in that sense, I did for a lot of their questions, like why, or I think one of their questions specifically was like, tell us about something in your interest or your area of
Mm-hmm,
interest. So I talked about like the biophysics of a butterfly wing, and how like they, have this like reflective, the reflective scales or whatever that makes them look really pretty or whatever. And for me, it was really just like, well, I really enjoyed looking at butterflies because they're pretty. But also tying some of that science into that made me seem like more of a nuanced person than just saying like I like observing butterflies or I like science. So yeah, I wouldn't get discouraged if you have multiple interests.
mm-hmm,
Like a lot of the schools explicitly say like they don't want, just, cookie cutter, like I'm gonna go into comp sci or I'm gonna go into econ, right? So it's not a bad thing to explore. Like I would say you would actually be better off if you had like two to three like subjects that you're really interested in and you went really far
mm-hmm,
into. Like obviously don't just be, on a surface level of things. Like if you've read like a book about something and suddenly that's your passion, like I wouldn't do that. But
yeah,
try to spend your time in high school like meaningfully, so that you're still exposing yourself to a lot of things. I would say freshman year is a really good place to do that because
for
you're still
sure.
kind of in that zone of exploring, and finding things that you're passionate about. I would join as many clubs as you could and then decide, oh, this is not for me or this is for me, and then go
Yeah,
and branch off. Don't try to make it so stressful that you have to like know your stuff on day one. And, because you can always explain in your college app, you can always
yeah.
provide more information.
For sure. And so many students here that go deep and not just stay at service level, but they do not really know what death actually means. In your case, what were like the concrete signs that your interests in science and art had gone beyond curiosity and become something real on your application?
Yeah, yeah. So I believe when I wrote like there's an extracurricular section for the Common App.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to kind of do an even split. So it was about, I think, four extracurriculars that had to do with art, four that had
Mm-hmm.
to do with science, and then
Okay.
two, I think, were kind of in the middle. So I'll just give you an example. So for science, I did a summer program called Mites, right? and
Okay.
that's it was in my
That's
junior
the
year.
MIT program. That's really
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
And so when I got into that, that was like something I knew for sure, like was something that would be very influential. I ended up
for
meeting a lot
sure.
of cool people, and it was just a really good experience. And so I put that
Yeah.
pretty high up there on my college
I think
app. But
50 to 70% of people from Harvard I've interviewed have gone to
mhm.
MITES.
Really, wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing program. I would highly recommend it. I've recommended some of my junior friends from high school to apply, and it's a really good time. Like, it is pretty hard to get in.
Yeah, for sure.
I think for my cohort, so there's two programs, Might Semester and Might Summer. Might
Mm-hmm.
Semester, I think, had an acceptance of like 4 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Summer is a lot lower. I think it's like 1 to 2. But
Mm.
yeah, I would still recommend, applying because you never know, right? You never know
Yeah,
if
for sure.
you'll get in or not. Um, but yeah, that's something I did for science. For art, I did a lot of competitions. So I did the
Mm-hmm.
Scholastics Writing and Art Award, yeah, whatever. And I submitted a bunch of my artworks to that. I won like a gold medal or something for the national level. So I ended up attending this like ceremony. But yeah, so going deep doesn't necessarily mean like you have to have national accomplishments,
Mm-hmm.
but it does mean that you want to at least have evidence that you've been working. Like for art is a good example because you can submit an art portfolio to a lot of these
Yeah.
schools, like a supplemental portfolio.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
if your work is beyond just like doodles or like sketches of stick figures and
Yeah.
stuff, then it will show that you still have that interest and you still have something that's beyond, what they other. And also for those types of portfolios, like the creative portfolios, the faculty in that department actually reviews it at that school. So I think the art department for all the schools that I applied with an art portfolio to did actually look at my work. Now I don't know what they thought of it, but yeah, it's just really cool. It's another perspective, right? And so there's that. There's one last thing that I did, and it was kind of merging the two, art and science. I did like
Mm-hmm.
a blog for a bit where I talked specifically about topics within the intersection of art and science. So this
Okay.
is something that you can get started like as soon as you want to. Just like get a website, WordPress or whatever, and then just write. Like it doesn't have to be this massive social media thing, and it doesn't have to be like you don't have to get like thousands and millions of readers or whatever, but just evidence that you've started something that's in your passion or
Mm-hmm.
in your fields of interest, no matter how small it is. Like this one thing I probably put further down on my extracurriculars list because it didn't end up taking that much time, and I was just interested in it outside of school and stuff. So yeah, like I would say your extracurriculars list is a good way to, really solidify what you're interested in or solidify the field you want to go into. Like you do have to put down your intended major when you apply to these colleges. So for me, it was like definitely something in bio as number one. I think I applied like biochemistry or biomedical engineering for a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
schools. But then my second and third choices were a little more creative, like art, film, stuff like that, that
Mm-hmm.
makes the colleges know that I don't want to just do one thing in college. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. If you like looked at your actual application as a whole, uh, what were the places or the pieces that you think proved to admissions officers that oh, okay, he's not a random, like he does not have like this random interest of art and science. This is like a real interdisciplinary student. And how could someone portray that into their application if they are
Yeah.
interested in
So
two different?
it's interesting you say that. Like, I obviously don't have my admissions files, but
Mm-hmm.
Yale did actually write me a letter,
Mm-hmm.
like a handwritten letter. So this was from my admissions like officer.
Okay.
So um, there, I do have to give you some context. So for mites, you get a recommendation letter or
Mm-hmm.
two recommendations at the end of the program. So one is from your core class teacher, and the second
Mm-hmm.
one is from your project class instructor. But they're like supplemental recommendations. Like I wouldn't say
Okay.
they're recommendations, but they're like pretty close, and you can put it on your college app. So I got a pretty good one from my project instructor for
Mm-hmm.
stem cell biology. And I think recommendations are often like overlooked, but they're really important. If you
Yeah,
have a
for
really
sure.
good rec letter or multiple rec letters, that's just like another way of the admissions officers being able to trust you, right? Like they
Yeah.
get another source. So the letter that my admissions officer wrote did say that. So I have it right here. It says, as your mites professor puts it, you are a once in career kind of student, and we feel the same way. And so that's something that they put that I really was like, wow, I didn't know that had that much influence when it came to the college,
No, for
admissions
sure.
process.
I always say like it's just you can write whatever you want in your EC section and your essays and everything. Recommendation letters work is just to prove that you actually do it. It's like a vouch
Yeah.
from someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'd say it's another line of credibility that's,
Yeah.
just
For
reinforces
sure.
things. But then they also talked about, so, it says, we love your dual passions for science and arts, but we were even more impressed by your mature and reflective essays. So this is something that I was also looking into because you don't just have, your interests, like they also look at your background as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So in my essays, I wrote a lot about translating for my family. And so they said the compassion and thoughtfulness that you put into translating for your family will apply beautifully both in the classroom and your residential college. So that's something that, is again, like I didn't really know much about it during the college
Mm-hmm.
process. Like this is going to affect things this much, or this is going to be a highlight. But
Yeah,
I obviously, ended up working in my favor. So I think
for
that's
sure.
can't really complain. Yeah.
It's amazing, man.
Mhm.
Also, I think everyone would also be wondering, you got into like the best colleges in the world.
Mhm.
What were your stats?
Yeah, so I can say, so my school does a GPA system that's kind of weird. We
Mm-hmm.
do like out of 100, and it's all
Okay.
unweighted. So that you round it to the highest, or you round it to the nearest whole number or something.
Okay.
I ended up having a 99 out of
Mm-hmm.
100 when I applied. And I took the SAT 3 times, and
Okay.
overall my super score was 1570.
Okay.
So I think 790 math and then 780 English.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I think the SAT doesn't really do a good job of like determining things. It all it does is like it puts you in a bucket. Like if you have above this threshold, like they move you
Yeah, it's
to
just like
bucket.
another, like another answer you can give to your application reviewer that okay, he passes the bar. He's not bad at academics, and then you're gonna
Yeah.
look at the other part of the applications.
Yeah, and I think some schools definitely do focus on it more. And
Yeah.
that's another thing I'll say is you want to tailor your application specifically to different schools, like depending on what they're looking for. I know a lot of people who like recycle essays, and obviously, like I might have also done that to a certain extent. But I would say definitely look at their like websites, what they're interested in, what they're looking for, because
For sure.
not all colleges look for, exactly 100% the same people. Like contrary to what I said earlier, like there is still some nuance, like when it
Mhm.
comes to that. Like when I was writing all of my essays, I made sure that I understood what the colleges were looking for. Like for Stanford, I was more like I talked more about that science side instead of art,
Mhm.
'cause I knew, Stanford looks for innovators and stuff, and in that sense,
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily suppress my art side. Like I still submitted an art portfolio. I still talked about it. But for the essays, I just went more in depth with like what I did. Like for example, supporting and encouraging STEM exploration in the elementary level was something that I did. And I wrote extensively on that for one of Stanford's supplemental. So
Okay. And did
yeah.
you use the same strategy for like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Princeton?
Yeah, Harvard was an interesting one because they had a really weird question. It was like, what do you hope to get out of your Harvard education in the future? So
Yeah.
that's like how I knew like Harvard was gonna be a different, just a different beast, I guess. But yeah, I talked about because I think they wanted you to talk about like big picture, like, oh, I want to do X career or whatever. But I talked more about like supporting my family, and how this education was gonna allow me to um go to these pathways that previously were unattainable and stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the exact essay I wrote. It
Mm-hmm.
was probably not the most cohesive because I was a couple days before the deadlines. I was writing it, but
Makes
yeah,
sense.
like I would
But I
say
also
I
get this question all the time from students as well. Like they want to
mm,
do a similar strategy, but
yeah.
I guess what they want to know is like how do you tailor essays for different schools without sounding fake or without like making it fit forcefully.
hmm yeah, so I would say a lot of the essays actually, the skeleton of it came from
Mm-hmm.
my Yale application because that was the very
Okay.
first application that I did, right? And some of the questions do repeat, like
Mm-hmm.
why,
Yeah.
why major or why this college? So I would say for why this college, like completely disregard what you write for every single college. It's like really start anew
Yeah, for
for
sure.
all of those responses because all of the colleges are looking for different, like they want to make sure
Yes.
you actually read about them and care about them, right? So for yeah, it was definitely like I wrote about the interdisciplinary nature, like the and. So I talked about how I would envision myself getting involved in science, this and then also art. And I talked about some pretty niche like programs that they had, but pretty basic. I would say like in terms of being authentic, like if you're really passionate about something and you actually do have that passion that for a certain field, you wouldn't necessarily find it too hard to make something or write something that ultimately sounds, good to you because you're already there, right? But even if you don't necessarily say like you have that passion and you still want to demonstrate like I would still, fit in your school or whatever. Definitely look at the college mission statements. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of value to be gained from that. Like, um, and there's gonna be people out there like influencers and stuff that'll tell you things like this is actually what this college is looking for. But you
Yeah.
don't know that unless you actually look at their website and look at people who
Mm.
have gotten accepted in the past. Like what qualities do these people all have? And a lot of the times you'll find that it's like work ethic, it's, academics or whatever, right? But make those decisions for yourself. Don't necessarily listen to any one person because that could,
Mm-hmm.
lead you down a pretty bad, especially if they're like just saying it so that, you feel better about yourself. Like,
Makes
like,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, like, so for, I want to say it was, yeah, so for Yale it was interdisciplinary. Um, Princeton was interesting. Princeton had a really long essay. I think it was like 500 words. And so that one was like, um, it was basically just why Princeton, I think. And I don't know. I think I put down because they're a much more academically focused school. Like they have the senior thesis and stuff. And so I try to hone into that. I try to talk more about academics as opposed to like my financial or family situation. And I still definitely did write about that.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that a school like Princeton wanted to see a more academically focused candidate, like that got me thinking when it came to my essays, like how do I portray this type of person? And it isn't to say that, you have to reinvent yourself every time
Mm-hmm.
you like write essays for a different school, but like you can definitely use the same basic idea of like this is who I'm going to present myself as to all of these colleges, and I would say do that. Like don't be discouraged to show who you are, and don't try to necessarily fit into a mold just for just because you want to get into this college or that college.
Mm-hmm.
But there are definitely nuances, and I can't really like talk about the specifics of like how you should go about this college because we can go on all day like for all the
Yeah,
different
for
colleges
sure.
there are.
I think this gives a very good outline to people who are willing to like use the strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time. I think this is going to be immensely helpful for everyone who's going to apply to similar colleges this next cycle. Do you have any last piece of advice for someone who's gonna apply in this upcoming cycle?
Yeah, if you're a current junior, don't be too stressed about things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know after my college applications were done with, like in January, I felt so free. Like I did not, want to do anything. And I would say give yourself that break that you need. Like you've worked very hard for 3 to 4 years, and take your senior year lightly. Like I think I've been the most relaxed I've been since like middle school, and it's
Low cortisol stuff.
yeah, low cortisol, yeah. So it's very easy to think that you have to keep going and, oh, but I need to get this internship in freshman year of college, or I need to work with this professor. Like take this time to yourself, go on vacations, go on trips with your friends, whatever, and even before, like even when you're applying, don't get into the rabbit hole that I did of, watching videos or getting like so deep into things that, you're like, oh, but what if my SAT isn't high enough? What if this is
Oh,
too low or whatever? Like I would tell people that you just need to understand that a lot of it is random, a lot of it
yeah.
is based on luck, and no matter what happens, like you'll still find success in whatever college you go to. And so obviously, shoot for the moon and apply to these top colleges, but don't be discouraged and don't be like I don't have a dream school,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't get in, you'll be really sad. But also
Yeah.
like if you're like me, like I had my dream school, it was Yale, and then I realized that it probably wasn't the best option. Like people change, so yeah, definitely stay as low key as possible. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you so much for your time, man.
Of course, yeah. And